5 seconds to the open. Ready?
Who wants to get this thing started right about now?
Welcome to Follow the Money Weekly with your host, Jerry Robinson.
Welcome.
Not just some guru.
Oh, really?
Your host is an economist and a best-selling author.
What an interesting news item. I'd better write that down.
And just someone who likes to make money and help you to make money. Welcome to Follow the Money Weekly. And here he is, Jerry Robinson.
Friends, welcome to you all around the world. Welcome to Follow the Money Radio right here online at followthemoney.com. Of course, you can find us all over the place. You can find us on YouTube. This podcast is also available on Spreaker.com and TuneIn.com and, many other places. iTunes, of course, you can download. But, of course, you can always find it right here on our website, followthemoney.com. You can also find the show notes there. Nice and convenient place for you to go each and every week. But I know many of you download the show. We hear great comments from you guys, and I just wanted to quickly give a shout out to all of our listeners who constantly send us feedback. Whether it's thank you for the show, or can you do a show on this topic, or can you interview this person? I mean, we just love hearing from you. So anytime you feel like reaching out to us, please just go to our website, click the contact button, and we'd love to hear from you.
And Jerry, I want to give a special shout out to all of our new listeners. Now, we already had many listeners in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area, but a shout out to our brand new listeners who we just spoke to in a cryptocurrency seminar on this last Monday night. And so shout out to all of you guys who came and are now brand new listeners to our podcast. Yeah,
definitely want to welcome all of you from Tulsa and all around the world. We really do appreciate you tuning in. And we really, every single week, what we try to do here at our podcast is to challenge you, to think differently about where we are. And today is no exception. In fact, today we're going to be talking about the U in the word course. Remember the acronym we've been going through? So for the last couple of podcasts, we have been going through this word course, charting your course in 2018. As you embark out on the world, as you move in the direction that you feel called to move into, as you're working in your career, as you're working in your ministry, as you're working in your in your business, whether it's online business, whether you're trading, you're investing, whatever you're embarking upon, you're charting a course. And at our recent Follow the Money Summit in 2018, held right here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, earlier this year, we did a teaching on charting the course. And that word course, we broke up into an acronym. So we already covered the first two letters, C, which stood for the word commitment. And we talked about the importance of committing. If you missed that podcast, I would encourage you to go back. It's just a couple of episodes back. And then our previous podcast, the very last one we did, was O. And O stands for overhead. And so, getting out from underneath all of that overhead is very important as you move into, the direction that you want to succeed in. And so often, especially in this debt-ridden country that we're in, those of you living in America listening to me now, or anywhere in the West for that matter, there's just a tremendous amount of debt. And overhead can really become an encumbrance and a big stumbling block to your success. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that last podcast if you missed out on it. But today, we're going to be moving into the next letter, which is U. And this one right here, I tell you what, this one could step on some toes. So I'll tell you up front, we might be stepping on toes. And that's okay. That's okay, because it's an important topic. We don't shy away from controversy simply because it presents itself. Instead, we are here to challenge and equip you and help you and encourage you to continue moving in a good direction. And the U, again, stands for unlearn. Unlearn. Now, success involves not just learning the right principles, but also unlearning the wrong principles. All of us, you, myself, we have all been exposed to poor financial principles that can lock us into a vicious cycle of never breaking free. The truth is that thinking like the rest of the world does, thinking like the majority, will give you the same results as the majority. And if you look around, you may think to yourself, well, that's a good thing because everybody seems, it seems like we're a prosperous world. It seems like everything is improving and everything is getting better. But in reality, what you don't see are the balance sheets that undergird much of Western culture. You don't see the debt that is on that vehicle that you see driving by. You don't know that the suit that man is wearing is on a Visa card that charges him 18% interest. You don't realize that the private school that people are sending their children to cost, oftentimes thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. And oftentimes that is borrowed. So we are really living in a debt-based world. And so because of that, we often follow the rules of the majority, and then we end up with their same results. We end up indebted. We end up not having enough money in retirement. We end up not having a job that we really feel fulfilled in because we're just simply following the beat of the drum of the majority. And it's important for you to, if you want to really succeed, is to think differently. And that really begins with your knowledge base. Whatever is in your knowledge base as a default, whenever you're born, and of course, as you're kind of born as a blank slate when it comes to your knowledge base. But over time, you're going to learn things. It's often what we believe that isn't true that holds us back from success. What you know about money is largely due to your own family financial philosophy. It's kind of a long phrase, isn't it? Family financial philosophy. You are a product of your family financial philosophy. As children, we were all exposed to our own family's financial practices, right? Whether those practices were good, whether those practices were bad, parents are always teaching their children either through acts of commission or omission, right? So whatever we do in front of our children, they're sponges. They're going to learn. And so if we spend money frivolously, or if we tell children that money is dirty and bad, or if we tell children, or if we don't show our children how we're actually managing our money, if we keep it secret from them, and so they never have any kind of foundation to really build upon, then they're simply going to succumb to the teachings of society, which of course are probably not going to be in their best interest. The ancient Roman philosopher and statesman Seneca summed it up this way. He said, "The mind is slow to unlearn what it learnt early." So whatever you learn early, it is true, and he's making a very correct statement here, that the mind can be slow to unlearn those things. In fact, we can defend those things that we learned early because they're so ingrained into us. If your family is like most families, the financial concepts that you learned growing up are more than likely designed to keep you stuck in that consumption trap that we talked about last week. There's certainly the financial concepts that you learned growing up very likely are not really designed to help you escape the consumption trap. But let's not rush to judgment against our parents or our grandparents. I mean, after all, they too, just like you, know what they know and learn what they know about money from their immediate families and from their surrounding culture. So it's not just, that our parents were, bad people telling us things that hurt us as we move forward financially. It's that they learned things that they should have also had to unlearn. But even after we fly the coop, even after we leave the home and strike out on our own as adults, the majority of the financial concepts that we are exposed to are taught to us by who? Well, they're really taught to us by the large banks. They're taught to us by the financial institutions on Wall Street. Sadly, the big banks on Wall Street have no vested interest in seeing you achieve true financial freedom. And that's the truth. Let's be frank. The banking industry's business model is to lend you money for the longest term possible and at the highest interest rate possible, while simultaneously getting you to put all of your available capital into their vault and lock it away in the banking system for the longest term possible while paying you the lowest interest rate possible. I mean, do you see the problem with that picture? The bank wants to lend you a lot of money, And they're always willing to do it, right? Because the businesses and the advertisers, as we talked about with the consumption trap, are always constantly barking and telling you that you need something to be happy. And the financial institutions are there ready to lend you money to make that dream come true.
And remember, like we said on the last podcast, this isn't some big conspiracy theory. This is just the model of capitalism. We are not saying that banks are evil and they have some evil intent on your financial picture. It's just that they are operating according to the rules of capitalism as well, and they are pursuing their own happiness as well, just like you and I are in this Western capitalist democracy world. And so we're just telling you what they're doing to maximize their profit and their happiness. And you need to be aware that the principles that you are going to learn in most schools and universities come from the banks and how they want to profit and what they want to teach you so that they can profit.
That's right. And we want to be careful about slipping into conspiracy theory here, because it's really not about that. You know, when people are moving according to their own self-interest, you find this. The banks are moving according to their own self-interest. If you were a CEO of a bank, you would do the same exact thing, right? Because it's in your best interest. You have an incentive as a banker to loan people money at the highest interest rate and to take their money and keep it locked away in the banking system and paying them the lowest interest rate possible. Now, don't expect the bankers to tell you that on their business card or on their website. But if you read between the lines, you can see that the financial aims and the incentives that the banks have are in direct opposition to the goals of someone who is desirous of financial freedom. And the reason behind all of this is because banks know a secret that they're never going to tell you, and that is that the way that you make money grow is that you put it in motion. You know, this is based upon Isaac Newton's third law of physics, which states that objects at rest tend to stay what? They tend to stay at rest. But objects that are in motion already tend to stay in motion. But the banks encourage you to give your money to them where it lays stagnant on your behalf, but the banks then take that money that's stagnant on your behalf and it's at rest, and then they put it in motion for their own benefit. The banks want your money so that they can put it into motion. This is something that we heard from our speaker at the summit, Mike Mitchell, who is one of our Christian financial advisors in the Christian Advisor Referral Network. And he speaks on this very regularly. And I tell you what, there is so much wisdom in finding a sound financial planner, a trusted financial planner who can be on your side, someone who can help you build a financial plan that, you know, is someone who's batting in your corner. Now, let me give you an example here, a little bit more about this money in motion concept. If I place an apple and a $1 bill, so a piece of fruit, an apple, and a $1 bill, let's say I lay them on a table, okay? I lay them on a table, and then I leave them there for 1 year, okay? I just walk away, right? So it's a table, there's an apple, and there's a dollar bill, and I walk away. I leave them there for 1 year. What would happen to the apple, and what would happen to the dollar bill? Well, the apple would have probably perished. After a year, it would probably be gone, right? So it would have pretty much disappeared. What about the dollar bill? Well, the dollar bill would still be there, right? It's not going to go away, but it would be worth less due to the many eroding factors on money. So money is constantly losing value due to many eroding factors. Inflation is one. Taxes are another. Lost opportunity costs that could have been done with that dollar are now part of the cost. Planned obsolescence. There's a myriad of eroding factors that are constantly deteriorating the value of your money. Therefore, you have to put that money in this debt-based economy. You have to put that money into motion to overcome those eroding factors on money. It's only by putting your money into motion, we could say, that you have any hope of overcoming the many eroding factors on money. But who is going to tell you that? The banks? The banks aren't going to tell you. Is Wall Street going to tell you that? No. Don't count on it. So deprogramming from the effects of the consumption trap and from the financial education provided to us so generously, and I'm using air quotes here, by the financial institutions, is vital if you want to truly break free financially.
I will give an example of this, and it's from my own family. It's my own parents, actually. And I'll just kind of briefly share their story with you to give you a good example of real people who unlearned in their financial lives, and now they're better off for it. So my parents' background is they learned what most people would probably say good practices and sound financial practices from their parents. And they did well in school. They went to college. They both got jobs working hard as teachers. They saved money all the time. They lived below their means. They didn't even get into a bunch of credit card debt. I mean, all of these things sound very good, and they were decent financial practices. But at about the time that they were thinking about retiring as teachers, well, on comes the scene. Jerry Robinson comes into their lives. Jerry and I met, and he comes into my parents' lives as well. And he began, of course, sharing with myself and with them all of the things that he had been researching and learning and putting into practice in the financial world. And then, of course, he gave them many book recommendations, too. For example, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And, of course, his own book, A Bankruptcy of Our Nation, which I highly recommend. And my parents took this advice and these book recommendations to heart because they do love to learn. They were teachers for many, many years, and they love to see people learn, and they love to learn themselves. But what they were actually doing is unlearning some of these financial principles and things they had learned in the past and had even put into practice. And the result is not that they had done poorly in their financial lives, but they had saved, they had a good nest egg, they were even able to retire as teachers. But the result of unlearning those concepts and relearning some out of the box concepts, they were able to create multiple streams of income, including rental real estate. They were using some of their skills and passions and hobbies, and still are, to make money and to create more income streams. They are moving in a direction where their home that they own is not fully a liability anymore. It's more of an asset because they use it to rent out rooms and different things. And they are now able to travel. They are able to do things they love, spend lots of time with their grandchildren. They are able, most importantly, to fulfill what they believe is their calling from the Lord in life. They do mission work out of their own pocket, on their own dime. And they truly have a sound and fulfilling retirement. And so that's one example of people who, they weren't in a lot of credit card debt. It wasn't that they were doing poorly, but they still had to unlearn a lot of concepts, and they're way better off for it. And I think they would tell you the same thing.
I love the story of your parents, Jennifer. I have the best in-laws, as you were just talking about, and they are amazing. I mean, what we've seen them do over the last several years, they've started thinking in different terms. Instead of thinking about money as a paycheck or as income as a paycheck, they think about it now as streams. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming podcast when we get to the letter S, where we begin to think about income as streams. So stick around if you're interested in that topic. So this is very powerful. Unlearning concepts and relearning, kind of deprogramming from the effects of the consumption trap and the financial education that is provided to us by the financial educators of our day, which are first our family, and then once we fly the coop, it's the financial institutions. Now, rethinking money is just one form of the unlearning that we could all benefit from. As a follower of Christ, I've been a follower of Christ for many years. I can tell you that there are perhaps just as many things to unlearn from the things taught to you by the church down the street as from the financial institutions. For example, Christians today must unlearn the myriad of false presuppositions that were hammered into our minds in the post-Enlightenment age. Let me give you just a few of the presuppositions that Western civilization is built upon that fly right in the face of what the Bible has to say. Number one presupposition of Western civilization today, one prevailing idea, is that man's ultimate aim is happiness. Man's ultimate aim is happiness. We see this written even, in fact, in the Declaration of Independence. You know, that it's a right. It's a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, that's a very broad concept, and that can actually be very deteriorating to our faith if we hear that the wrong way. That could be a very devastating kind of teaching or a kind of presupposition to our faith in this 21st century. Let's think of another presupposition that Western civilization is built upon. That concept is that man is naturally, by nature, he is good. He is not evil, he is good. Well, again, if you are a Bible believer, if you're a follower of Christ, you know that that exactly is the exact opposite of what the Bible teaches. It teaches that man is not naturally good. He is sinful. That's, of course, what the whole point of the Bible is. And so Western civilization teaches us things that fly right in the face of what the Bible tells us is the truth.
I think that this presupposition in particular, that man is naturally good, is one of the things that allows us as human beings in the Western and democratized world to think that we can make a democracy work, is that we will somehow naturally choose laws and leaders that are good because we are inherently good. And as people who believe the Bible and who have faith, it doesn't sync up with the Bible.
You know, that's true. And so let's think of another presupposition of Western civilization today that flies right in the face of what the Bible says. One of those presuppositions is that history is unfolding in constant human progress, right? So men believe that they are progressing, that they are getting better, that they're naturally good, that their ultimate aim is happiness, and that everything is just continually progressing and man is elevating. He's going up the escalator. Okay, well, that's exactly the opposite of what the Bible has to say. So what you'll find sometimes is that people hold these two beliefs in tension. They hold both Western civilization presuppositions, right? These ideas that are prevailing in our world, they hold those to be true. And they also say, I also believe the Bible too. And so therefore they are holding two very diametrically opposed philosophies at the same time. And then they wonder why they're confused. They wonder why so many people look at the church today and say, this doesn't make any sense. You guys, this doesn't make much sense at all. Another presupposition of Western civilization is that everything is matter, right? Everything is matter. Science becomes kind of replaces religion or faith in our modern day. So virtually all institutions today adhere to and promote ideas rooted in these presuppositions. There's just no doubt about it. And this is where we get, of course, propaganda. All propaganda in Western civilization will fail to be convincing if it goes against these four presuppositions. Now, we talk about these presuppositions further in more detail in a video I did. You can Google it on YouTube called Propaganda. And we talk about what propaganda really is. And in fact, those of you who are members of our website, we also have that on our website as well, you can find. But my point here is that learning what to unlearn is quite possibly the highest form of learning. And
Jerry, I will say for the listener right now who might just be going, like, this is deep stuff. And these presuppositions that you've been talking about just now are things that you and I have discussed for years to come to some of these conclusions and to really unlearn in our own lives. We're still unlearning some of the things that we realize were deeply ingrained from, birth, and then through, for myself, going to a Baptist church since I was basically born until my 20s, and public schools and universities. And so if this feels a little bit, hopefully it's not over your head, but if it feels like it's hard to grasp right now, just remember Jerry and I have been grappling with this stuff for Jerry for well over 2 decades now, and for myself almost a decade. And so don't worry, don't fret. We have many resources, and Jerry will recommend a few books later on in the podcast that you can start to really understand and grasp a lot of what we're saying. But one other thing I wanted to mention in unlearning, and not just in our financial lives, is for those of you who have children, which I know are many of you out there, is that we want to be careful not to teach anything to our children that they will have to later unlearn in life. And that is a very important thing that Jerry and I are taking to heart with a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old that are just sponges of information right now. And that's one of the reasons why we are choosing to homeschool. Even if you're not homeschooling, remember that your children are going to be learning things in school that sadly they will have to unlearn. But with your supplementation of education at home, even if you're not homeschooling, you can really help with that process of them not having to unlearn as much later in life.
Let's just give one example of that before we move on, and that is that, children having to unlearn things is kind of sad. I mean, just like Jennifer said, the idea, and we mentioned this on last week's podcast, is this concept of don't teach children something that they have to unlearn later. So let's just give one example. This might seem silly, but it's a very, I think, a good example of this. When you're a child and you are learning about the Bible, you're learning all of these stories about the Bible. Anyone who grew up in church can relate to what I'm saying. You're learning about some pretty wild stories that really kind of contradict reason, right? They contradict what you know to be empirically possible and empirically true. Well, what you're told by the church and by your parents is that, God sent Jesus Christ to the earth. Jesus Christ died upon a cross. He was resurrected from the dead, and he rose back to heaven, and now he sits at the right hand of God. And that is a story that children are told and taught at an early age. But what else are they told simultaneously? They are also simultaneously taught that this is true. Christ did all of this. This is absolutely positively true. There's no lying about this, the parent says, the church says. However, it's also true, they say, that there's a fat man named Santa Claus who flies around the world, and he knows your name, and he's keeping a list. He's keeping a list about you of naughty things that you've done. And he's going to give you a gift if you're good, and he's not going to give you a gift if you're bad. And he flies around the world with reindeer, and this is completely true too. And you know what else is true is that Superman, or He-Man, or Spider-Man, and you begin to think about all of these different characters that possess these otherworldly powers, and they're subjected not to you and I, which have the ability to discern that that is not true, that it's just simply make-believe. We subject our children's minds to it when they have no defenses against it. And then we later just hope that they understand that we were just doing it in jest. We were simply doing it because we were trying to have fun with them, or we thought that it was neat, or we thought that it was, something that they would like. But in reality, what we did was we gave them something that they have to unlearn now. But we still tell them, well, don't forget, though, I wasn't lying about the Jesus part. I wasn't lying about the God part. That part is true. I was just lying about everything else. And so whenever you do that to your child, what you have done is you have created a pretty big barrier for him. So I find it ironic today, as many people, you'll often hear this, especially in Christian circles, people say, woe is me, the young people aren't coming to church. How come they won't come to church? It's almost like they don't like church anymore. Well, maybe it has something to do with the programming that they were programmed with. Maybe you kind of, through your various stories and what we've been talking about here, maybe you confused the little minds. Maybe you created tension in their minds, and now they don't know what the truth is.
And don't think that we are passing judgment on anybody who does the whole Santa Claus thing with their kids. This is not about passing judgment. This is the part that when we say follow the money, fierce truth, real profit, this is the fierce truth part. And we just want you to be aware. These are things that you won't hear anywhere else. That, when I tell my children to believe in God and to believe in Jesus, but I'm also telling them this, that it might confuse their precious little minds. That's what we're trying to convey. It's not a passing of judgment, but an awareness, and that will hopefully lead to action and teaching things that your children won't have to unlearn. That's what we're trying to get across here. And then I want to say one other thing about the children aspect, and that is just one thing that Jerry and I have come up with that we're going to teach our children as they grow through childhood and teenage years within our homeschool, is that we are going to teach them not just to aimlessly go to college, not to just view college or university as just the next step when you're 18 years old, but instead to learn a trade that is in demand. Now, that might involve going to college, and if it does, fine, perfect. That's great. That will be useful to learn that trade that's in demand. But if it doesn't involve going to college, that's great too, because guess what? You're learning an in-demand trade, and that means you will have a skill that not just anyone will have, and that is something you can create an income stream with.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's some kids who come out of high school and they're like, I got to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. They know what they want to do. And if that's the case, you're pretty lucky. I mean, that's pretty neat. If you know what you want to do getting out of high school, you say, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, or I'm going to be a veterinarian. I mean, if you already know, then that's great. But oftentimes that's not the case. Oftentimes kids just go to school and they go to college and they waste a lot of money trying to figure out exactly what they want to do. And then they get out and do things that they didn't even really get a degree for. So that's kind of backwards thinking, and then it saddles you with a lot of debt in the end. I know a lot of people today who don't have a college degree and make great money because they're not afraid to get their hands dirty. You see, if you find a career that people really want to outsource, like maybe plumbing or, appliance repair or heat and air repair or lawn mowing. I mean, these things maybe not be glamorous in your mind, but guess what? These guys are pulling down money who do this because people don't want to do those things. And so the answer to every question is not, simply go to college and get a $50,000 degree or a $100,000 degree or whatever you pay for it, and then have to pay for that for years, and then maybe you'll find a good job. That's the kind of thinking we want to discourage in our own children and anyone who's listening to this podcast, to really think before you leap when it comes to college. Really have a plan ahead of time. Okay, so we've talked about the family financial philosophy. We've talked about even how we have to unlearn things in our faith. It's the same thing when it comes to trading. You will discover that the habits and techniques of the world's greatest stock traders over the last century, if you go back and study them, you'll find that what these guys did flies directly in the face of the conventional wisdom that you hear about in stock investing from Wall Street institutions. So it's exactly the opposite. So if you study the greatest traders, guys we talk about all the time in our membership, we talk about guys like Jesse Livermore, we talk about guys like Nicholas Darvis, we talk about guys like William J. O'Neill. If you read what these guys do when they trade, they're not following the script. They're doing the exact opposite. And in fact, many times it really is the exact opposite. Likewise, the way that I have built income from the internet over the past 15 to 20 years has also been by bucking conventional wisdom. So it's not just trading, but it's also building a business. If I had followed conventional wisdom, I would have had to deal with far too much competition. So really rethinking a lot of these things is really what we're talking about. Someone once said that half of wisdom is learning what to unlearn. And I think that's a really powerful quote. What we learn becomes a part of our knowledge base. And our wisdom is quite simply limited to our knowledge base, right? Let's talk about this real briefly as we kind of wrap up and move towards our conclusion. Knowledge is the software that runs upon our mind, which is the hardware, okay? That's a great way to think about this. Your knowledge base is like software that is run on the mind, which is the hardware. So your knowledge is basically your mind can really only do what it knows, right? It's kind of limited to that ability. So whatever you know, whatever you put in your mind is really the software that your mind is going to be able to use to function, okay? So knowledge is where it all begins. And so unlearning the wrong things and then relearning the right things is a great place to start because it kind of updates your software. It updates the software that runs on your mind, the knowledge. Now, having knowledge is not enough. You have to understand that knowledge. Your hardware's or your mind's ability to properly read the software is what we would say is understanding. So understanding what you know is oftentimes the weak link. Oftentimes people say, I know all of that. I know what the practices are for trading, or I know how to do this, or I know this or that. But knowing is not enough. You have to understand it. Your mind, your hardware has to be able to properly read the software or the knowledge. And this is extremely important. This concerns your aptitude and your will, your ability and your will. And so understanding is a key part. Now, finally, after understanding is the wisdom. So once we have knowledge, we have that software running on our hardware, our mind, and then we understand it. That is, the software is being properly read by the hardware, our mind. Wisdom becomes the outcome. Wisdom is the execution of the software installed upon your mental hardware. Okay, so wisdom is the actual execution of the knowledge that you have. And so if you are failing in life, or you're failing in business, or you're failing in trading, or you're failing in some other area of your life, oftentimes you can trace it right back to a failure of either A, you don't have the right information, you don't have the right knowledge, your software needs to be updated, right? Or your hardware is not reading the software properly, right? There's a problem. And then therefore, what happens is when you go to execute the knowledge, you apply the wisdom, because wisdom is basically applied knowledge, applied properly understood knowledge. Then as you go to execute that knowledge, you find that it's not producing the results you want. And this is because somewhere along the way, something is missing. So it could be that we are executing things that we need to unlearn because they're not providing us the kind of results that we want to have. So unlearning ineffective methods and relearning the methods that actually work is a huge, huge step for many people, and it really separates them from success and failure. If you want to succeed, it begins with the process of detoxing your mind and replenishing it with the right knowledge. The Bible says in Romans chapter 12, it says to renew your mind. And I think that's a great way to put it. By the way, I want to leave you with a couple of book recommendations. I know, Jennifer, you have one. I'll give you one as well. If this topic interests you, what we've been talking about today, I encourage you to delve deeper by reading a book. It's pretty difficult to find, and it's a pretty cumbersome read. I'll be quite frank with you, but it's worth the time. And the name of the book is called Propaganda, and it's written by a Christian sociologist. He's a Frenchman. He's actually passed away. I think he passed away back in the 70s. But he wrote some really powerful books. One of the most powerful books I've ever read called Propaganda by Jack Ellul. Last name is Ellul. Fantastic book that I strongly recommend if you're interested in this topic.
And of course, I recommend Jerry Robinson's book as a great source to start unlearning about our economic system and our financial system, and also unlearning many of the personal financial principles that are unnecessary to succeed. And his book is called Bankruptcy of Our Nation by Jerry Robinson. You can go to our website, followthemoney.com/bankruptcy to learn more. You can find the audiobook, the Kindle book, and the paperback.
All right, so that's you. We covered you today, you for Unlearn. Next week, we're going to hit R. R stands for reserve. We're going to be talking about saving, the importance of saving. Don't miss it. We'll be back right after this.
Follow the Money Weekly presents your precious metals market update. Here's Tom Cloud.
This is the end of the 3-week series that we've gone through to get to where we are. We talked about 2 weeks ago how you are priced spot plus premium, what I pay a major wholesaler plus my commission equals your price. We've talked about that we're the only company I know of in the country that if you buy it from us, we'll rebroker it for you free. We're the only company that has the lowest storage fees in the country, bar none. If you're storing stuff out there at 50 basis points or more, you need to call us and talk about moving. We'll get it moved to our warehouse that we use. Very cost efficient, but you must have an account in there to do that. And then last week, we talked about the U.S. gold pre-1933 and whether it be confiscated. If so, was it okay to have some in your portfolio? And we said yes, as long as you stick with the $20 gold pieces, the Liberties and the St. Gaudens that are made prior to 1933. So we've talked about all that. Today, I want to talk about the special deals. And up till 2000, I was in the market, make market, put up some bids, and then the last 18 years, I've been strictly a broker. I know a lot of people in the industry, have a great reputation, 42 years of doing this. So when you get to be friends with wholesalers and they're market makers and they have to buy things when their bids get hit, so they may only want 100 gold eagles, but they have to buy 300 or 600 gold eagles. So they'll send me a note or call me and say, you can have 100 gold eagles at this premium, which can be 1 to 2% below the normal premium. Well, that's an incredible deal for a company that's only working on 2.5% markups on gold and 3% on silver anyway. So now you can save 2% and almost buy it what is normally my cost. So what a lot of our clients have learned to do is when they are ready to buy, they call in, talk to Dan or Kathleen or myself and say, okay, I've got 10,000, 100,000, million, whatever it is, and I want to get what the lowest break-even point is, things that are below market. And we can come back and tell you what those are. We'll have some every day in gold and silver that'll be more below our normal cost. So if you're not married to a product, like if you don't have to have gold eagles or British sovereigns or French francs every time, then certainly we can help you even get closer to break even right off the bat by the way you buy, the price we're able to find for you. So we think this is very, very important. And as we've talked about over the last 2 weeks, if you want a self-directed precious metals IRA, give us a call. Well, we can function as your agent. We can function as your broker, your representative, but we cannot be the custodian. You'll have to use one of the government-approved custodians. So if you'll give us a call at 800-247-2812, we'll discuss that with you about the IRAs. And certainly when you're ready to buy and you want to buy the most cost-efficient product, we're there, unless there's just a product that you like, and that's fine. We have people buy the same product every time they purchase because that's what they feel comfortable doing. So we don't have a problem with that. But what we try to do for 3 weeks here is bring you into the flow of the market rather than talking about economic indicators and fundamental issues in the market out there, technical issues, where the market is. We'll get back into that. The next 2 weeks, I'll be on vacation, so I won't be back until I guess that's about July. What would be something like July 17th or something like that, 16th or something like that before I back. So this will be the last one that happens. But I hope you have a great summer and get caught up, and main thing, get your portfolio in order, because I can promise you this fall is going to be a Donnybrook farm. You're going to see premiums going up. You're going to see prices going up. You're going to see gold cryptocurrencies coming into existence. We've talked about, we're going to continue to hear rumors of war. We're going to continue to hear about the oil problems we're having with Iran and Iraq and all this. None of that's going to change. So we'll get back into all that starting on, like I said, I think it's July 16th or 17th, right in there. So until then, this is Tom Cloud signing out.
Hey friends, this is Jerry Robinson from Follow the Money Weekly. Recently, we have been receiving many emails from our listeners commenting on the great help they're getting from our precious metals expert, Tom Cloud. Gold and silver are excellent hedges against the growing threat of coming U.S. inflation. Who's your gold guy? Make it Tom Cloud. With over 30 years' experience with precious metals, Tom will answer all of your questions. Don't buy your gold and silver through some call center and pay inflated prices. Call my good friend Tom Cloud and speak directly with him and get all of your questions answered. For a limited time, Tom is offering free shipping and insurance on every gold and silver purchase made by our listeners. Call 800-247-2812. And when you do, tell him that Jerry Robinson from Follow the Money Weekly sent you, and he'll throw in that free shipping and insurance on your entire order. Call your gold guy, Tom Cloud, right now for the very best deals on gold and silver coins. 800-247-2812. That is 800-247-2812.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike Mitchell from Strategic Wealth Partners and Christian Referral Advisors. I'm hoping you are having a good start to June 2018, and I hope wherever you are today, you and your family are doing quite well. I'd like to talk to you just a moment, and really just an expansion on a topic that I raised at the recent Financial Freedom Summit in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I spoke to a number of the people in attendance about the utilization of a charitable remainder trust, and most importantly, combining that strategic move with a life insurance trust. And I just began to think this afternoon it would be really, I think, helpful if everybody understood the multiple economic benefits that literally roll off of a properly designed, properly used life insurance contract. Now, obviously, I think everybody understands that a permanent life insurance policy has an economic benefit, namely that of building equity inside the policy, which is called cash value. The other benefit, what I would call the second benefit, would be the fact that you can accumulate these assets inside this life insurance contract with tax-deferred treatment. So there's no tax treatment on the buildup of the cash value. The third economic benefit that comes off of a life insurance contract is what I call the Roth effect, and that is the ability to distribute money out of a life insurance contract that you've accumulated on a tax-deferred basis, utilizing policy loans which are not characterized as income, and therefore you are able to distribute tax-free the accumulated cash values from a life insurance policy without having to pay income tax on these deferred gains. The fourth economic benefit comes from the issue of becoming disabled while you're building the value of the cash value in the life insurance policy, and that is called a waiver of premium provision of the life insurance contract. Again, properly designed, if you become disabled, there is a self-completing feature which would continue to keep the life insurance contract in force and continue to actually build the cash values inside this policy as if you were funding the policy yourself. The sixth economic benefit is the utilization of a permanent death benefit, which again goes back to this strategic move of using a life insurance trust properly funded to give you the ability to use assets you wouldn't otherwise use. Now, we talked at the Freedom Financial Summit about using a charitable remainder trust to be able to gift away highly appreciated assets, get a tax deduction for that gift, and ultimately take income streams off of the trust and use the deduction of that gift to eliminate taxation on those gifts. But there are other uses as well. If you would think of a death benefit of a life insurance contract as a financial coupon, you will find that it just creates a lot of opportunities. One of those might be to set up and use the equity in your home using a reverse mortgage strategy to again create some tax-free income streams. The death benefit of the life insurance contract is what allows your family to recover the uses of those assets for yourself on a tax-free basis during your lifetime. A lot of many economic benefits that come off of simply properly positioning a well-designed permanent life insurance plan into your planning portfolio and your overall planning model. Again, if we can help you with these strategies, this is what we live for here at Strategic Wealth Partners. This is what we teach our clients. So please give us a call at 833-370-0777 and let us help you fully utilize a properly designed permanent life insurance policy.
Reach out to Mike Mitchell today by calling him at 833-370-0077. That's 833-370-0077. All right, friends, welcome back to the final remaining moments of today's radio broadcast. Over the week, as Jennifer had mentioned earlier this week, I had spent some time in Tulsa, Oklahoma, speaking to a group about cryptocurrencies. There seems to be a rising interest in cryptocurrencies right now, and one of the more interesting thoughts is what I want to leave you with on today's podcast at this final word. It's a quote by Douglas Adams, who was an English author and satirist. And he makes this very interesting point. And I think it works so well when we think about the new technologies that we're seeing arise today, like cryptocurrencies. Here's what Douglas Adams said. Anything that is in the world when you're born is normal and ordinary and is just a natural part of the way the world works. Anything that is invented between the time you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. Anything, however, that is invented after you're 35 is against the natural order of things. Isn't that quite true, friends? Isn't it funny how technology can often be a friend when we're young, but as we age and we get older, sometimes these newer technologies can become cumbersome to us, and we can become easily confused by them. It's not necessarily that we are too slow to understand what's happening. It's just that technology is growing so rapidly that it's very difficult, unless you're just immersed in it all the time, to stay up with it. I really want to encourage you, those of you who have been looking at Bitcoin, and you see all of the various cryptocurrencies out there, you see how cheap they are right now. They have come down so much from their previous highs back in December of 2017. I'll tell you exactly what I told the group that I spoke to earlier this week, and that is that I believe that the greatest buying wave of cryptocurrencies still lies ahead. I expect many emotional-based boom-bust cycles to play themselves out over the next several years with cryptocurrencies. And we have produced a report, and we also manage a 10 cryptocurrency portfolio for the year 2018 that we share with our gold and platinum members. But you can also simply buy it on our website. If you want to have access to the top 10 cryptocurrencies that we own, they have gone up, some of them dramatically, since we've added them to the portfolio, and we expect many more gains to be made ahead. So if that's you, if you're interested in cryptocurrencies and you want to learn more about our particular portfolio and learn how we view them, you can go to followthemoney.com/crypto 2018. That's CRYPTO 2018. And there you'll see the report that we are providing to all people who want to download it. You can download it right there on that page. And I want to make it available to you and realize that we are going to be, I believe, seeing another major buying wave, which began about the same time last year in 2017 and about the middle of the year. I don't know if we're going to see the same thing happen this last half of 2018, but I do want you to be prepared. And if you're interested at all in cryptocurrencies, I would encourage you to go to that web address, followthemoney.com/crypto 2018. There you can learn how you can download our report, our portfolio. And we also have, coming up on July 1st, we'll be releasing our second quarter or third quarter commentary on the state of cryptocurrencies. So anyone who has access to that report or portfolio will receive our July 1st update. So again, if you're interested, go to followthemoney.com/crypto 2018. Well, as always, friends, I really do appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much for letting me in your life each and every week right here on this broadcast. And remember, when you want the truth, just follow the money. Have a safe and prosperous week, and we'll see you right back here next time. Until then, God bless.
All of the information contained on the Follow the Money podcast is strictly for informational and educational purposes. It should not be construed as specific investment advice. The views and opinions of our guests and sponsors, including Tom Cloud, are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of FTMDaily.com or Robinson Media Group, LLC. Jerry Robinson does hold an insurance license and at times may offer consulting on life insurance and fixed retirement income products. Follow-up, individualized responses to email or phone requests that involve the rendering of personalized investment advice for compensation will not be made absent compliance with state investment advisor registration requirements or an applicable exemption or exclusion and applicable insurance regulations. Past performance is not indicative of future results. You should be aware of the real risk of loss in following any strategy or investment discussed on the podcast. Remember, never do your financial planning through podcast or radio. It's your money. Be wise. Do your due diligence and always consult a trusted financial professional before making any financial decisions.